and welcome to the Gazette discussion for 26 July 2021. My name is Harsh Singh, and in this discussion, we will discuss certain important articles of the Gazette. Our discussion will be in two videos. The first video will have the discussion on featured news, which is on 10 years of National Rural Livelihood Mission. In this discussion, we will understand what is the basic concept behind this Rural Livelihood Mission. What are the important schemes the government has introduced, especially for women, for the poor, for the youth of the rural areas. After that, we will understand the various opportunities it has created, the challenges specific to the rural livelihood and the way forward. The second video will contain the rest of the Gazette discussion, which is about this day in history, Kargil Vijay Diwas, 26 July 1999. New snapshots. Two important updates we have for you today are: one, on Caste Census, important government policy released about Caste Census, what kind of data it will release and what it will not. The second is on provisions of the 97th Amendment. Some provisions have been struck down by Supreme Court. Why? We will understand that. Image of the day is on Ramappa Temple, which is now included in UNESCO World Heritage Site list. Terms and concept. 4 terms and concept for you today. First is dying declaration. The second is National Security Council in context of 2 Pegasus report. The third one is Gatekeeper Model, right, which is about preventing suicides in prisons. And the fourth one is Eisner Award, an equivalent to Oscar in the field of graphic designing. The two editorials for you today are: one, first on India's food security response during COVID times. India's effort has been appreciated in this article. And the second one is on state's duty and how much a citizen should ask for from the state. So this is about questioning India's credentials on working for the population of India. Case studies from Ahmednagar, where an important man from the village, he transformed the whole face of village by applying certain skills to the village development, especially watershed harvesting. This day in history is the Kargil Vijay Diwas. This is the day when India reoccupied all its high posts in the Kashmir Valley region, right, from Pakistan. So 1999, 26 July is celebrated as Kargil Vijay Diwas. Now, India and Pakistan had a pact among themselves that during cold season, when there is lot of snowfall at the high altitudes in Kashmir Valley, the soldiers from Pakistan and India both of them would come back to the valley, and during summers they'll climb back to the high outpost, right? This was a pact. But in the winters of 1999, right, these Pakistani soldiers also climbed the outpost of India, right, and therefore they violated this kind of norm. And in summers, when Indian soldiers, they were trying to climb back, they were fired at from these strategic positions, right? So since this was a high outpost, it was a strategic position and they could look at the soldiers coming up, right? So India fought this war, 1999 Kargil war, and this is how India won back the high outpost. And this day is celebrated because this is the day on which they occupied all the high outposts, right? This is where the Operation Vijay, this operation was named as Operation Vijay. This was successful, right? The counterpart of Air Force, right, where Air Force helped in the Indian Army achieve these posts back, that operation was called as Operation Safed Sagar, right? And this was a limited war. What is a limited war? Limited war is a war where the kind of weaponry used is only limited, so only conventional weaponry and not nuclear weapon, right? The territory where war is happening is only limited, so here only Kashmir territory, and the country is fighting the battle only limited number, right? So America was not included and Russia was not included. It was only between India and Pakistan, right? So this is where quickly we must remember the Shimla Agreement and the Lahore Agreement, right? So Shimla Agreement was in 1972 when both the countries said that they will not interfere in each other's personal matter, right? So Pakistan accordingly said that these soldiers which had intruded, they were not Pakistani soldiers, they were only Kashmiri people who wanted freedom. So this was actually a blatant lie, a white lie, because a lot of reports later, letters retrieved from the dead bodies, they showed that they were officers and people from Pakistani military as well, right? Also, this was the Shimla Agreement, right? What was Lahore Agreement? So Lahore Agreement happened in 1998 when the Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari, he went to Pakistan and he had a pact with Nawaz Sharif, right? So this pact was again about respecting each other's boundaries, but this did not happen, right? Peace did not prevail and India had to fight back to gain its territory. So Kargil Vijay Diwas. New snapshot. The first snapshot is on caste census, right? An important policy matter. The government of India has said that it will not enumerate caste-wise population other than SC, ST in census. What this means is that when the government conducts census, right, through 10-year-long process, right, this is where the government has said that it will release only SC, ST data in the census. It will not release other communities like other backward classes data in the census, right? But there has been a demand from all the sections, for most of the sections of society, to release this data, right? So let us see. Now, National Commission for Backward Classes, this is a constitutional body. It has said that to be able to deliver better services to communities in India, it is important to have the data for a lot of other communities as well, right? Because around 50% of the population could be OBCs. So we need to understand the classes and categories in which this kind of population is distributed, right? Also, we had conducted the last caste-wise population census only in 1931, right? Only 1931 we knew what is the kind of population various caste-wise, right? And in 1990 when reservation was given to OBC community, right, this 1931 data only was extrapolated and understood that around 50% population was OBC population, and on the basis of which 27% reservation was given to this community, right? So this is a very old data, right? 80-year-old data, and we need to have latest data. Also, the data on which all policies are based, it is based only on pegging, right? Extrapolation. Why not have a certain and specific data? So this is the demand, right? Now, also OBC is one huge collective category, right? But India is a diverse country, right? India has got various linguistic groups, various geographical terrains, right? People with different kind of demands, right? Of the same community, people with diverse religions. And how can we hold giving all the people, 27% people in India, the same kind of benefits, right, from the country? So this is why we need to have further categorization and understanding of the caste-wise data. So this is one thing that has been demanded from the people, right? Another thing is that we have state level data, right? So various states, for example, Bihar has got a specific caste level reservation policy, right? There are certain states which do not have tribal population itself. So their population and reservation policy is completely different, which is also based on the government, the union government data, right? So to be able to streamline this unorganized data and distribution of caste-wise population and the policies, we need the important data which is released by census, because census is an activity which is done by the central government, right? Now this activity needs distribution of data at state level as well, right? So this is important. Then we have Justice Rohini Commission, right? This commission was appointed in 2017, and main contention of this committee was to ensure that OBC be divided in further sub-communities to be able to effectively deliver government policies and reservation, right? So right now this committee is in its extension, right, running in 11th extension, right, because it also needs data. It needs that census data to be able to define how it has to divide the OBC population in various categories, right? At an interim level, it has said that it will divide the population in four categories giving 2, 6, 9 and 10% reservation effectively. So this again comes to 27%, right? But this is only an interim report. Final report is still awaited. Now they also need this data, right? Also, why not have the contemporary data? Why base our policies on data which was derived 80 years back, and then 30 years back this data was extrapolated through pegging, right? So this is not done, right? This is what has been justified through various mechanisms. But why is government restraining from giving this kind of data? Now, first reason is very simple: political and social churn, right? Now, if OBC, for example, was this big a community, now if we are trying to give further community feeling in people and provide various community data, it can easily be utilized. One community can be mobilized against the other community, and what will happen to the social fabric of the country, right? So this is how there will be political churn, there will be social churn, right? There will be a feeling of particular community, and it might be mobilized against the other community, and therefore government does not want to further segregate and divide the community, right? So this is one. Also, this is a very large exercise. Lakhs of communities have to be studied, and their population data has to be taken in concern. So therefore, it is a very, very complex and difficult exercise, right? So this is the reason why government is not revealing this kind of data, right? Snapshot 2. It is on provisions of 97th Amendment of the Constitution which have been struck down by the Supreme Court, right? all the provisions of 97th Amendment have not been struck down. Only few provisions have been struck down. So what is 97th Amendment about? Now, 97th Amendment Act deals with provision of cooperative societies, right? Now, it has got three important components. First is a fundamental right to be able to form cooperatives under Article 19(1)(c). Second, the state liability under directive principle of state policy, right? 43B states that the state will ensure, it will help in providing cooperative societies. Now, the third part of this amendment was about introducing Part 9B to the Constitution, right? This Part 9B dealt with certain features, right, about the regulation of the corporation, their election and governance, how their governance body will be elected, how will they be ruled, right, what will be their term. So these things were introduced in Part 9B. Now, why is this part under contention? Now, this part is under contention because Schedule 7 of the Constitution, which divides what is under central list, what is under state list, and what is under concurrent list, it is clearly given in Part 7, Schedule 7 of the Constitution, right? Now, so this segment, the segment of the cooperative society, it clearly is mentioned as a part of the state list, right? It is under the exclusive legislative power of the states, right? And here the parliament is creating a law, right? So this is the main condition, and that is where the states did not contend. It was a public interest litigation which contended, and this case was presented to Gujarat High Court, right? So Gujarat High Court struck down the provisions completely of the Part 9B, right? So this case later went to the Supreme Court, and this is where the Supreme Court said that certain provisions, only certain provisions which dealt with the cooperative societies, they had to be struck down because states did not approve this, right? So here all was required was the permission of at least half of the states, right? So a ratification was required by half of the state legislature as per Article 368, and this was not done, and therefore these provisions would be struck down, right? However, multi-state cooperative society, right? So this is where central government again can rule, they can form policies, they can also dictate on how the election to these cooperatives will happen. This will not be struck. This is what the Supreme Court has said, right? Because it comes under the union list. So this is clearly about learning some fundamentals of the Constitution, right? The distinction between the Schedule 7 of the lists, right? So on the basis of that only, these certain segments of this constitutional amendment were struck down. So this is the update of the article. Image of the day. Image of the day is on Ramappa Temple. Now, where is this temple located? This temple is located at Warangal in Telangana state, right? So what is special about this temple? Now, this temple is in news because it has lately been included in UNESCO World Heritage Site, right? So now India has 39 sites, among which 7 are natural, 31 are these man-made sites, and one is a mixed site. Which is the mixed site? Kanchenjunga, right? So Kanchenjunga is a mixed World Heritage Site located in India, right? Now, important to note is that this Ramappa Temple name is derived from the name of the person who built this temple. It is not about the god. It is not the king at those times. It is the person who built this temple. This was built in the Kakatiya Empire rule in the area, and the sculptor who built it was the one on whose name this temple has been made. Now, a quick background to this. Fujian is the state in China where UNESCO World Heritage Committee met. China is the head of this committee for this year, right? So this meeting held ensured that 2019 list, right, the probable joinees to the World Heritage Site, right? So they were approved right now. 2020 and 2021 meeting are yet to be held because of the corona crisis, right? Now, Indian Prime Minister also interacted with the Chinese Premier, and Fujian state and Tamil Nadu state, there is a discussion of having them as sister states. Why? So a quick look into this is right here. This is where Guangzhou is located, and this is the Fujian province, right? And we see a lot of interactions between India and Fujian province because of the maritime link in the olden times as well. And that is the reason in Tamil Nadu we find those temples, Indian temples, and we find such similar temples, Indian temples in this province as well, right? So therefore, since there is a cultural linkage and there is a possibility that this economic linkage may again spur because of China's maritime link, right? So this is why the Indian Premier has also said that there is a resemblance, and therefore we will have sister state linkage between Fujian and Tamil Nadu, right? So one of the linkages is also associated with this temple, Ramappa Temple, right? This temple is also called as the brightest star in the galaxy of medieval temples in the Deccan. Why? Also because of the shape, the star-like shape of this particular temple, also because of the beautiful architecture, right? So this is the image of the day. Do remember these extra information, because this is where things can be asked, right? Now, for example, Kyoto and Varanasi both are sister cities, right? So these sister cities are formed on various bases. For example, the possibility of development of Varanasi on the line of Kyoto, this is one. The similarity in infrastructure, the similarity in the cultural heritage they have. So a lot of things have been considered to form such associations. Terms and concept. The first term and concept is the dying declaration. Now, what is a dying declaration? Whenever a person is on their deathbed and they give certain important information to police, right, about certain important incident, that is a dying declaration, right? So some important provisions of this dying declaration have been mentioned in Indian Evidence Act. So some declarations on the deathbed by a person can be actually considered as an evidence in the courts. So this is an article update about the same, right? So person whose statement is written or even verbal, that can be considered as an evidence, right? So what are the terms on this, right? So the main principle behind this is that a person on the deathbed will not lie. If they have to go and meet God in a few moments, they will not lie before that moment. So this is the principle on which it is based. But it is possible that the person might give some wrong information, right? And therefore the Supreme Court, the court needs full confidence of that person, and therefore sometimes medical examination is also required. For example, was the person fully conscious? Were they fully conscious during the time of giving this judgment, giving this statement or not? So this is what is medically examined, right? So this is one of the important condition. Another important condition is that the person giving the statement, they have to directly hear it, they have to directly see it, or directly feel that particular incident. They cannot say, I think it was something like that, right? So they have to directly be involved with that kind of information. So this is another thing. Another thing is that they have to be the only principal witness. Nobody else has to be the witness in that particular incident. So on the basis of this, their evidence will be considered in the court of law, right? So this is important here. Now, a police can also record, but a civil person can also record such incidents, right? Cross-examination is not required here, right? For example, if the person who is on the deathbed, they complain about this person. So cross-examination means all the evidence is given will be questioned by this person because they are the accused. But in this case, the cross-examination will not happen. The court will only test the confidence of the person, and if they are confident, right, this is how the evidence will be considered, right? Supporting evidence might also be considered by the court. So this is what the article mentions, right? So dying declaration, it has been in news because the court, a special CBI court, has convicted 2 policemen because of the dying declaration of a person in custodial death. So custodial death, person who died in the custody, they have given an evidence against these 2 policemen, right? They have given a dying declaration. This is why in news. Next, National Security Council. Now it has been in news because lately the Pegasus controversy has also revealed in certain ways that the government has utilized a lot of funds in the National Security Council, right? So tenfold increase in the funding of this organization. So on this basis, we will not study all these political kind of news. What we will understand is what is this National Security Council, right? So National Security Council is a body which is headed by a National Security Advisor, right? So this body has got 3 layers, 3 tiered organization. Primarily this council, this National Security Council has the National Security Advisor. Along with that, they have some important union ministers, Home Affairs, Defense, External Affairs, and Finance Minister, and some Vice Chairperson and Deputy NSA and Vice Chairperson of Niti Aayog. So these are the important members. The Prime Minister also chairs this body, right? So do remember, Prime Minister at their discretion can chair this body, because ultimately this body actually reports to the Prime Minister. This body headed by National Security Advisor, right? They advise the Prime Minister on issues of national security and strategic interest for the country, right? So for a very important body for the defense, the 3-tier structure for this organization has Strategic Policy Group 1, National Security Advisory Board, and Joint Intelligence Committee. So what are these organizations? Very quickly, in a summative way, I'd like to tell. the first strategic policy group. Now this is a group in which all the military chiefs are there, right? Secretary of the important government departments are there. So this is the strategic policy group. National Security Advisory Board. This advisory board has civilian members, right? Important civilian members of the society and community selected by the government, and they give suggestions to the National Security Council, right? So an independent and open perspective to them is given through that, right? And then Joint Intelligence Committee, right? So this is another organization which is linked to it. Okay, so this was constituted in 1999. Officers of Indian Police Service, Indian Foreign Service, etc. have been the national security advisors of the Prime Minister, right? So this is update about NSA and National Security Council. Gatekeeper model to prevent suicides in the prisons. Now these are important terms, right? They will ask, what is gatekeeper model? What is related to, right? And then we will be puzzled. So very quickly we discuss these terms, and this is to ensure that you have a good understanding. You can also use them in articles. Also, I will provide you some further data so that you can also be able to, write certain important good answers on these kind of topics on prison reforms, right? So let us discuss what this gatekeeper model is. Now, the fact is that around 80% of the inmates, they either suffer from some kind of depression or some kind of substance abuse. What is substance abuse? So they take drugs, they take alcohol or smoke, etc. So this is substance abuse. Or they are in a state of depression because they committed some crime in that manner, or they are deprived of certain mental, physical facilities that they were used to, so they are in depression. Now, idea is to target this kind of population so that they do not commit suicides in the prisons, right? So that there is less unnatural death in the prison, right? So in this model, the NIMHANS, this organization, right, this mental health and neurologic sciences organization based in Bangalore, it has committed this kind of research where it understood that gatekeeper model be applied. What is this model? This is a model where a person, right, a healthy person, mentally fit person will be trained, and they will also be an inmate. They will be trained and they'll help the other inmates, right, to improve their mental conditions. How? They will talk to them, right? They will listen to them, and this is how a lot of pain, grief, anxiety will be relieved from the persons, and they will also be able to target those people who need more help, more support, right? More mental health support. So this is the gatekeeper model, right? Now, along with this, there is a buddy system. Buddy system is a very similar system in which the person will be trained enough and they will have buddies to talk to, right? They will have friends to talk to. Through this listener, right? A lot of pain will be relieved from the people, and mental health can be cured to a certain level, right? So e-mulaqat, phones, right? Phones and speaking to the relatives. These are important reforms in jails which can be applied, right? Now, some important issues in Indian jails. First of them is overcrowding. A lot of people are populated, right? And they are living in jails. Why is it so? It is so because 70% of the jail inmates are under trials because their trial has not been completed, right? We don't know if they have committed the crime, but they are still in the jails, right? So arrests are made, extra arrests are made by the police, right? Less legal aid is given to people. Then along with that, COVID-19 has ensured that courts are not functional, and therefore more under trials are there, right? Preventive detention, a special feature in the Indian constitution. What is preventive detention? The government detains people considering that they might commit some kind of crime. So preventive detention is there. So because of all these reasons, there is overcrowding in the jail infrastructure, right? Also, 436A section of CRPC, what does it say? This section says that if a person has committed a crime, right, which has 10 years of penalty, and if they have 10 years of maximum penalty, and if they have served more than 5 years, they can actually be released on bail, right? So this provision is also not known to people, and people keep living in the jails. So overcrowding, right? This is one important issue. Second is understaffing. The jail have less infrastructure and less staff. Less funding is given to the jails, right, for their building. So underfunding and violent clashes happening in jails, which are a result of the mental condition of the people. They're also the cause of the mental condition, because a lot of people live in fear in jail because they might be killed, there might be unnatural death, right? So what is required is more mental health professionals. And who can train them? Even the inmates who are doing well, who are mentally fit, they can participate. So this is what is this news about. Fourth is Eisner Award. What is Eisner Award? Eisner Award is an equivalent of Oscar award in the field of graphic and comic designing, right? So the good news is that an Indian, Anand Radhakrishnan, has won this award in the category of Best Painter Multimedia Artist, right? So this award is presented in many categories and every year in San Diego Comic Con, San Diego, California, right? So this is what is the news about. Editorial of the day. First editorial of the day is on India's food security response, especially during the times of COVID, right? So this article applauds the effort of Indian government in the whole scenario. Before anything, I would like you to look at this image, right? Now this image talks about 2018, 19 and 2020 data of the number of people who have utilized the food given by the government. So this is the month of March, and you can see 4.2 million metric tons, and suddenly there is a spurt, and suddenly you can see an increase in the amount of food utilized by the people of the country, right? So now suddenly it jumps from 4.2 to 7.7 and 7.5 million only after lockdown. This clearly shows that the government policy of providing food to the people, right, during the time of crisis, it has helped, because a lot of people utilized this provisioning of food, right? Now the article also mentions that 1/10 of the global population, right, according to the World Nutrition Report, 1/10 of the global population is undernourished, right? Along with that, India, on the other hand, had got self-sufficiency, because post-Green Revolution, we had a lot of self-sufficiency in terms of the crops that we produced and the amount of the food consumption we had. However, nutritional security was something that was challenged. And this is where targeted public distribution system, targeted PDS, has actually helped, right? So we can see the result during the times of COVID crisis. Immediately when the Prime Minister Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana was revealed, right? So for 8 months complete, 8 to 9 months complete, 5 kg per person per month extra food grains were provided to the poor population. Around 80 crore of Indian population was provided this. Not only this, the government ensured that the smooth provision be done, because it revealed, the central government released a lot of entitlement to the state. 6 months of entitlement were released in advance to the state governments, right? So this is a good effort by the government, good management. Also, the article talks about the Atmanirbhar package, in which the migrant population, around 8 crore of migrant population, they were also given extra food resources to tide over this kind of crisis. So this is how this article proceeds. It says that what is required is having one nation, one ration card for a person, especially for migrant laborer, so that wherever they go throughout the country, they can avail this kind of facility easily. The article also speaks of having resilient agriculture, right, especially during these times. Now India has good agriculture, but India is dependent on monsoon. India is dependent on the credit that the farmers receive, right? So this is how India has been able to provide food during crisis time. During these last 2 years, all around the world, agriculture in India has been applauded, right? What we need to do is control post-harvest losses. Also, if we control the amount of wastage, we will be able to control the amount of the greenhouse gases that we release, right? Because a lot of energy is also spent in production of food, right? A lot of energy is also wasted during the whole process. Also production of methane, etc. also happens. So if we reduce the amount of wastage, we will have less greenhouse gases production as well. This is how the article concludes. The next editorial of the day is criticizing the government of India, right? It also talks about what and how much a person can actually demand from the country, from their own country, right? So the article talks about many examples, right? For example, rural urban population, right? It says the amount of literacy during the time of 1983 was not at all good. It was dismal. Only around 2 years of education was there to the rural worker, and for the urban worker only primary level of education, right? Even till 2012, the rural worker only could get middle school education. Middle school is around class 5, and secondary education for the urban worker, secondary education is up to class 8. Higher secondary, right? So secondary education. So this is the low level of education provided by the government when the government was in charge. Also in terms of the doctor available in medical facilities, right? So India had only 9 doctors for 10,000 population. Now this is even less than states like Pakistan, states like Sri Lanka, where they have 10 doctors per 10,000, right? More than India. Better than Brazil, better than China. They have double the number of doctors per 10,000, right? So India under state control did not do as well. On the other hand, right, we have private infrastructure, right? So in cities, there is a growth of health infrastructure. 62% of the infrastructure of health is in urban areas. Only 30% areas have 62% infrastructure. Why? Because they are majorly controlled by the private sector, right? Private sector has also done well in terms of education, right? So 50% students, this is what it is carrying, and with only 1/3 of schools, right? So private has actually participated a lot in these terms as well. So this is what the article mentions. The article also says that people should ask for their rights with the government, and the government, instead of curtailing, right, the private sector, it should participate and ensure that there be augmentation of facilities for the Indian population and build effective human resources. So this is where the article leads us to. Case study of the day is on Popat Rao Pawar. He was the Sarpanch, the village Sarpanch of Hiraware Bazar village in Ahmednagar district of Maharashtra. What did he do? He took over as the Sarpanch in 1989, and during that time the village was struggling with many issues. For example, frequent droughts, low agriculture productivity, right? Social issues, social evils like alcohol problem. So what did he do? He started by creating water harvest facilities. What is harvest? Harvest is storing, right? So water storage facilities for the particular village. So rainwater harvest structure where rainwater could be stored. So when rain happens, right, the water gets stored in these big huge pits and ponds and lakes. So this is one water harvest structure, right? He also ensured that plantation also happened, because there is water. Why not plant trees around this area? So plantation also is what he ensured, right? So there was, because of this plantation also, there was increased level of, right, water below the earth. So water table also rose. There were increased number of water wells because of increased water table. So this is what he ensured, right? And after this, do we see some result? Yes. So that is why a case study. There was an increase in the groundwater table, right? There was more revenue for the village because farming activities could be revived in the particular area. Not only that, cattle farming, right? So anything linked with agriculture will get a boost. Not only that, not only agriculture, he ensured that the benefits flowed in all directions. So economy also prospered, and along with that, social rewards also came into place. How? He banned alcohol in the particular area, right? Now depression is also linked to low productivity. So he ensured that banning of alcohol is done along with social prosperity, right? So this is one. He also started having done HIV test before marriage. So these were social benefits which reaped out of economic benefits in the region. A very good example, and this is how, right, he followed the principles of Gram Swaraj, also illustrated by Mahatma Gandhi. And this is where I'd like to show you the image of this gentleman, Popat Rao Pawar. And one important way he did it was through contour trenches. So what is contour? Contour are lines, imaginary lines drawn at the same height. Now, when we see these trenches, trench is a cavity, a hole being dug. So at this height, we are digging some holes. At lower height, we are digging some holes at the same level, and so on and so forth at various other levels, right? So when rain falls, now these holes will have, these pits will have water filled in them, and therefore they will also save water. Also, it will help in the groundwater recharge. This water can also be later utilized for other activities, right? So through these kind of innovative mechanisms, Popat Pawar ensured that his village prospered, right? Now he is working in the Maharashtra government as an important advisor in this particular village development scheme, right? So this is where inspiration can be derived for people like you, people preparing for civil service examination through such examples, because later you are the ones who will be innovating these examples for the people of India. Thanks for watching.